The utter gall of that man to threaten me, a patriarch of Baldur's Gates, a future ruler of it even. Who even was this man? Some follower of God? Pathetic. But Borthoff, for now. I highly doubt that coin will keep the little snoop at bay, but his information was still helpful. Mortlog is not dead, but with a little careful spinning, he can take the blame for the activities of those lovely little dead-free fellows. He can finally be shown to be the disgrace to the family I have always known him to be. Then again, it's never truly been personal. I just hate having to share things with others. With him out of the picture, my place shall be more secure. Of course, there is still dear Firstwell, technically the next in line, but his health fails more every day. Soon I don't feel I'll have to do too much to get rid of him. Then it'll all be mine. After Mother, of course, anyway. I shall inform them both of the events at the bathhouse, of course. Firstwell probably already knows a little him and his little spies. Then, tomorrow, I'll send out some men. See if I can find out where this Gonsman lives. I can make a few guesses. Then, when he least expects it, I'll have him brought in, whipped and beaten, and thrown into the Chianfar, where he belongs. Get my money back as well. What a fool to stand against me. I will see him again. That I'm very sure of. This is Red Moon role-playing. The hour is getting late now, even for the Low Lantern, as the three of you emerge from downstairs and once again make your way to the bar with this new individual. She looks very uncertain as she looks between the three of you. Again, a very young woman, but she holds herself pridefully. She clearly has a stance. You would recognize this Royce and Lofar of someone who knows how to use that weapon she's wielding. Definitely a military lady. And as you are sort of by the bar and she's sort of looking at you, you will notice out of the corner of your eye Amric Van Famper leaving with his retinue of two individuals and sort of making his way to exit the Low Lantern. Forgive me, friends, who are you people?
I think we're perhaps interested in the same thing. Or at least the same end goal. You're from Elturel, right?
Yes. Yes, I am. And she looks a little upset as she says this.
We heard what happened to the city. That it's gone. Look, you need to be careful. The Flaming Fist have been arresting, well, Hellriders. When we were down there earlier, they had arrested a few more. They were shouting about the same thing you were. That Baldur's Gate was responsible, that somebody, what did you call him? Was here somewhere?
The High Overseer. Yes, don't worry, I know the Flaming Fist are not to be trusted. I've already encountered them. She sort of frowns a little, and you notice does have a little bit of a sort of bruise on her neck. She kind of rubs it. I am avoiding them, do not worry. Yes, the High Overseer. I don't know if Baldur's Gate is responsible for what has happened to Elturel, but I do know that the High Overseer is here in the city, and I believe, from what I've heard before I was separated from the few people I was protecting, the Van Famper family, he was seen with them. So I was here trying to speak to this horrible man, but he didn't want to help.
That horrible man is embroiled in a lot. There's been apparently a cult problem. We got arrested on the way into the city and had to do some work for the Flaming Fists so as not to end up in a cell. I don't know if you've heard, there was an explosion in one of the other districts.
She shakes her head. and says, "No, I have not heard such a thing. I apologize." She's looking at you quite strangely, you notice, Larissa. Her eyes once or twice have just gone to the horns on your head, as sort of like looking at them and then looking at you again.
Larissa doesn't say anything about that now, but she notes it. She's like, there have been murders in Baldur's Gate, some death cult worshipping the gods of death and tyranny and murder. Van Thamper's brother was somehow involved, and when we spoke to him, he said that Van Thamper himself was involved in this, that he pays people. We don't know how far, but we think it might be linked to what's going on.
How do you mean? She looks interested and looks also to Lofar and Royce as well. Involved? I mean, perhaps... I wasn't sure, but maybe they have kidnapped the High Overseer and they are holding him against his will. And then maybe a death cult you mentioned. Maybe they are responsible for what happened to Elturel. That could be right, couldn't it?
Perhaps anything is possible, but we're only going off of what we knew. Do you know anything about what happened to Elturel?
She frowns, sort of adjusts her sword. Well, I do know what happened visually. I was in the training field at the time. About 50 of us, one of the forts. We weren't in Elturel. I looked to the sky and the companion. The companion, you are familiar, yes? The blessed son of Torm, gifted to the city to repel all undead and fiends. As she looks at you, Larissa, looks a bit awkward.
At that, Larissa wills, like, I'm a tiefling, not a fiend. And yes, the horns are real. People ask a lot. And she kind of laughs to try and lighten the mood in the, I get it, you're freaked out by the red skin and the horns.
She looks embarrassed at this. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to... No,
It's okay.
Well, yes, I know, I'm sorry. Tieflings are, well, under the High Overseer's commands. They have not been allowed in Elturel for at least 20 years now. She winces a little at this.
We do look a bit odd. I can understand people's fright sometimes.
High Overseer Favius Krieg says it's important that all who do not represent the values of Torm and Helm and Lathander and Tyr are not welcome in the holy city of Elturel. I admit I've always thought that seems a little going against some of the teachings, because how can you teach people to accept the holiness of the gods if you are not allowed to? But what do I know? He's the High Overseer.
I mean, if you ask me, that he sounds like an idiot, but...
She looks a little affronted by this, like, he's chosen by Torm. Maybe his words don't always have wisdom, but who are we to question those chosen by the gods?
You should always question the people chosen by the gods.
Especially when their city appears to be wiped off the face of the land.
She looks towards you, Lofar, at this topic of conversation, looking at Royce and then at Lofar, and sort of like, you serve God, don't you?
I do, yes.
Well, I think it's a bit much to be talking about the gods being wrong about things.
Well, we are all entitled to our opinions, are we not? There are many gods, there are many people, there are many opinions. I serve God, but I cannot ask that everyone do so, and I cannot force that upon others. It is something you choose.
No one here is questioning your god. We're questioning the man who represents your god. We've all seen people representing gods do horrific things in the name of their god.
High Overseer Favius Krieg has done nothing wrong. It is under his guidance that the Companion has given our city its holy light for 30, 40 years now. And under his guidance, our nation has prospered and its holy radiance has spread. It's Baldur's Gate that causes the problems.
And under his guidance, your city is now a crater. Let's not forget that.
Let me also say that my parents worshipped a god, and they had a person within our very small village that spoke for this god. And they were not good people. Those who speak for the gods are just as corruptible as any other person. They're just as capable of being wrong and misinterpreting a god's messages and a god's will.
Well, I can assure you that's not the case that's happened here. But anyway, I digress. I'm sorry. I apologize. The companion normally is a blissful, radiant ball of holy energy, yes? Well, suddenly, it was the opposite. It was like a black sun had emerged over Elturel, crackling with dark energies. There was a strange hum in the air. The ground shook, and suddenly, Elturel was gone.
Just like that.
Yes. Obviously there was chaos. The entire city was gone, but the farms, some of the villages, most of the refugees have come from there. And then, of course, some of the neighbouring towns, people panicked, and the woods of Sharp Teeth are dangerous at the best of times. Not all the Hell Riders were in the city, but most of us were. We lost thousands of our armed forces, bandits, beasts. I was with the many who came to Baldur's Gate. It's one of the closest cities. We just hoped for some shelter during this time. And then these awful people. You've seen them. They won't even let us in. They treat us like we are criminals or scum or something. They were beatings at the gates. Beatings! People with families and children being beaten. I knew this place was awful, but I didn't expect it to be this terrible. Is there no one here who has a heart?
Apparently not. Look, why do you think he's here? Why do you think the Van Vampers have taken him hostage or protection, or...?
Well, a few people said they'd seen High Overseer leaving the city just a few days before the incident. Strange, really, because he was supposed to be meeting, I think, a representative of Baldur's Gate. I think they did arrive, but again, I wasn't in the city at the time. Anyway, I heard from them that, and then while I was in the city, I got separated from some of the others, but I found some people. I did my best to ask, and one woman did say she thought she'd seen someone very important near the Van Vamper residence, and it matched the description of the High Overseer. I had to pay her most of my coin to get that out of her. But then I ran into some trouble, and I felt separated from most of the people I was with, so I think it's just me now. Anyway, I heard that Amric Van Vamper works here, and so I thought I'd come here to find out what he knows and find out if I can just find out where the Overseer is, but from what you've told me, I fear maybe he's being held against his will. That must be it.
You think he's at the Van Vamper residence?
Do they have a residence? Maybe so.
They do, in the upper city.
Well, then maybe he's being held there.
Do you think he knows what happened to Elturel? That perhaps he left because he knew what was coming?
Oh no, he wouldn't have done that. He would have told us and helped us get ready for whatever it was. But you said death cults. I don't know much about magic. Do you know any magics that can just have a whole city vanish? I have hope that it's just some sort of trick, that they're not all dead. She's looking very despondent at that line of thought.
Magic can do many strange things. Something like that, at least in my experience, wouldn't be the work of a single person. It'd be the work of groups of people. It would take immense power to rip a city, well, God knows where.
You think it's been taken somewhere?
A whole city going missing. If they wanted to kill everybody in it, you could send an army, couldn't you? But if you're going to take a whole city, ground and all, every building, every street, you don't just take that to make it disappear, do you?
No, I suppose not. Again, you can tell what you're saying is going in, and she's definitely thinking about it, but you're not entirely sure if she's correct in what she's saying. Although she is very earnest, there's no lying going on here. You can definitely tell that.
Well, I think we need to go and see. We need to go and visit the Van Vamper residence and see if your missing High Overseer is there. I can get us into the upper city. Say that you are on business of the High House of Wonders. We just pay the fee and then we get in, and from there on we make our way to the Van Vamper residence and we find this person. That is really the only thing that we can do here. Clearly they're involved.
I do know one of the guards there. He might not be too happy to see me, but we can cross that bridge when we come to it. He may help us, he may not.
Well, if you can get us into the upper city, I can definitely try and get us into that residence, and I don't mean through the front door.
Excellent. And you, lady, will you join us?
Of course! If he is held there against his will, we need to save him. And I admit I wasn't sure how to do that, but you three seem to have a plan. Wonderful. I will aid my sword to your cause in the name of Torm. I'm Rhea. Rhea Mantelborn.
Well, Rhea Mantelborn.
Larissa.
I'm Lothar.
The name's Royce. Royce St. John.
It's a pleasure to meet you all. I feel so much better. I have found some people who actually care about injustice and wrongs. This is good. I only wish we could help some of my other companions, but I don't think we'll be able to. But if we can find the High Overseer and rescue him, we might be able to then deal with this problem. Maybe we could even find out what happened to Elturel.
Yes.
Perhaps. Look, I have to ask, you seem young. Have you seen battle before?
Of course I have. I've been training with the Hell Riders since I was 12.
Wonderful. I thought I would just check.
She smiles and goes, "Yes, no, my family came to Elturel from Termish when I was young, but we were guided there by Torm, of course, and then I have been with the Hell Riders for, 7, 8, 9 years. I have trained with them. I am an accomplished soldier. I have dealt with bandits and other ne'er-do-wells. Don't worry, I know how to use this sword."
I thought I would just check. I wouldn't like to have your life on my hands at so young if you were untrained.
I can assure you, you don't need to worry. My concern was having some backup, but now we have it. So wonderful. What's the plan then? I don't know how to get into the upper city.
Yes. Well, we will be there on official business of the High House of Wonders. And we will have to part with some gold. But that is it.
If you were to head now, you know the gates will be firmly closed, and you will be interrogated as to why you are entering. Normally, even the likes of you at this time of night are strictly not allowed on the streets.
Perhaps we rest for tonight then. We have a room downstairs.
Yes.
And we go in the morning.
That may be less suspicious, and it has been a very long day.
Rhea nods, and all three of you make your way down to the bottom level of the ship. You walk through a bunch of little alcoves with hammocks and sailors, gamblers, snoring. But you see a room up ahead with a door and find yourselves in a room. It is a room with a chest, some leaking substance coming from above, a single bed, and a door with no lock. You guess, Larissa, this is the room that you have bought for the night. You all enter. Rhea looks a little concerned. "We're going to rest here then?"
Pretty much, yes.
She goes to sort of close the door, which doesn't close properly. What do the three of you do in this leaky, very unsecure room?
I imagine Larissa will, sleep sitting up, quite comfortably. She slept in, worse places, up against the door to keep it closed. She'll use her backpackers to make it comfortable and, throw her bedroll over her.
What way is the handle on this door? What does it look like? Or is it got a...
It's an old wooden door with metal hinges. It looks like it once did have a lock. The lock has long rusted away. It closes, but with nothing to stop it opening, it kind of swings very slowly open again. Especially as the boat kind of rocks about a little.
I'll take my great club and try and maybe lay it across the bottom of the door and brace it in place with, is there a set of drawers or any cargo chests or anything on the ship? Just try and lodge it in place so there's something at least that if someone tries to come in, it mightn't stop them, but it'll make a hell of a noise.
It does indeed have those things, and you manage to secure the door, and now the door is at least not going to swing open. Rhea notices you doing this, by the way, and assists you, and says, "Good, I feel a bit better having the door secure. You can't trust this city." And you all go to sleep. Morning comes. You all awaken. None of you have had a good sleep. You've at least recovered, as you would, but you're all aware that you've got aches in your neck, aches in your back. Even Rhea, who slept on the bed, was sleeping in armour. No one is happy, and Lothar, you're pretty sure something has been dribbling on you for at least an hour or so from above.
Lovely.
But you awaken. It is morning. Peeking outside after removing the blockade, if you will, by the door, you'll see it's a bit quieter now. Most of the people who were sleeping have left, and upstairs sounds silent. Probably because people are sleeping now in the dawn. What do the three of you do?
Lothar, is it still too early to get into the city or into the upper city?
No. The gates should be open to the public soon for the morning commerce, people coming in, people like yourself who would be going to work in the temples and the Wide, which is the sort of merchant area of the high city.
No, I think if we leave now, we will get there right in time for the opening of the gate. And then we will be able to get in.
And we just have to find the Van Thampa residence.
I do know where that one is. Don't I? The upper city is got a lot of big mansions, right?
You do indeed. After all, the Van Thampa residence is near the temple district, which is rather strange, because most of the Patriarch's manors are in the manor district. But apparently this one has been built near the temples, which makes it further away from having any neighbours, basically, other than the temples of the temple district.
Excellent, yes, it is close to the temple.
So, the morning has come, and you leave the low lantern. The mists have cleared, as they do during the day, and whilst the weather is still hot and unpleasant, it's not too bad a day in Baldur's Gate. You make your way to one of the main gates leading to the higher city. You know the way well, Lothar. You come here every day, after all, to attend to your duties. As always, there is a little traffic, although compared to the traffic you saw in the lower city, it is far less here. You make your way up to the gate, which is the only way through the secondary wall of Baldur's Gate, walling off the entire higher city. The guards come forth in their polished armours. These are not the Flaming Fist. These are members of the Watch, who are the personal law enforcers of the Patriarchs themselves. Their armour is far more polished. They look far younger, far less battle-hardened, but they definitely have nicer weapons. Alright, coming into the city. Toll.
Yes, and I bring out the normal toll. Yes, and this is the group that is with me. We're heading to the High House of Wonders.
So that's 20 silvers for each person. You're making your way through, and then one of them looks at Rhea. Hold a moment. Priest, is it? He squints looking at you, Lothar, clearly because he's trying to work out, are you a priest? Because you kind of look like one, but also don't. Priest, who's this one?
She's to be brought to the temple for some questioning. We would like to try to find out what has happened outside in Elturel. You can recognize the armor, I'm sure. She will provide us with some answers that we need. Don't worry. She is under my watch at all times.
Lovely. Well, I suppose there isn't a problem. Woman then comes over, a woman guardsman. Indeed, no problem at all, and extends her hand out.
Is that what they do normally? I mean, is that something that's...
It's not what they do normally, but you know someone asking for a bribe when you see one.
Of course, and I give what is a reasonable bribe here. Coming into the upper city, there's always a lot of gold that needs to change hands.
Indeed. You think a gold piece, maybe two.
No worries. And that is what I provide her. And I smile. Well, we will be on our way now.
And Rhea looks a little nervous, sort of sticks close to the others. As you make your way through, the watch people nod, and you are in the higher city. There's a great difference here. Larissa and Royce, who neither have seen these streets before. Things are far more peaceful here. You hear music coming from somewhere, perhaps a string quartet or a bard playing something, although it's very quiet and very refined. Gardens and statues with fountains are everywhere. You see watch people, again in a similar armour to the ones you saw at the gates, here in patrols of 5 or 6, going regular hours, you can tell, Royce. And in the distance, some very large buildings indicating the temples, the manors, and the wealth that is the High City. What do you think of this, Larissa and Royce?
Larissa is impressed to some degree, because it is nice, it's lovely, but there's also a part of her that's resentful of it, this opulent wealth, while the rest of the city sits in squalor in comparison. And it's not because she thinks that the whole city should look like this, but that the people here care so much for their own protection and the safety of their streets, but care very little for the rest of it, when they could be a driving force to have the whole city be safer, but they're only really concerned about their little bubble, their little sphere, and as long as they don't really have to leave it, it doesn't matter. And she resents that. There's a part of her that looks at all of this and thinks, yeah, if I was in a good guild of a certain kind, this would be where I would be making my money.
Indeed. Although, you do recall that Katakala did mention you need to be careful up here. There are rules, after all. The guild has established a status quo with the way things work in the city. You believe she said there are kingpins up here, and they own domains, but you also know you need to be very careful. Thieves who come into Baldur's Gate, head straight to the High City to rob a mansion, are often never seen again. And that's even if they aren't caught by the Watch. Still, that is the way of Baldur's Gate. The wealthy patriarchs live in their decadence and splendour, while the common folk are forced to toil in the lower city. And those who cannot afford to live in the lower city, well, you know that they are forced to live in the outer city, the sprawling slums that now surround outer Baldur's Gate. This was not perhaps the vision held by the city once at its founding, way back when it was just a smuggler's port and then a bustling trade city. But those in power like to stay in power. And with no true government beyond the power of the 4 dukes, there aren't many people who have a say against this sort of thing anyway.
Royce, on the other hand, is kind of taking it all in, and this is where he had hoped to get by reaching the pinnacle of his fighting career, kind of as a darling of the, dilettantes and kind of upper class merchants that live in the area, that taking him to, different functions. He'd be talking about his exploits, kind of wined and dined. And he'd never quite got there, and he's never quite seen this side of the coin, so he's just taking in as much as he can.
Indeed, there are some very pleasant sights around here as you begin making your way through the temple district. Hell, you obviously make your way past the High House of Wonders, a gigantic building with great pillars at the front. This is the High Temple of Gond in the city, different from the House of Wonders, which is close by, but more an open museum of Gond's relics and creations. Now, the High House of Wonders is where the priests worship, and Lofar, the secrets are kept in the cellars, although you are not allowed to know those secrets, sadly. There's also a very large tower, sort of to the east, which reaches high into the sky. You know this, Lofar, as Razimif's Tower. Quite an interesting little tower in the middle of the high city. So you make your way past the High House of Wonders, heading to where you believe the villa is, correct?
Yes, indeed. I have no real need, I believe, to visit the High House of Wonders. They know that I'm occupied with something connected with the Flaming Fist, so no need to go there until I've completed my duties. So yes, towards the Van Thumper Manor, and to try to find out some way inside so that we can perhaps find the High Overseer.
Well, doesn't take you long to finally walk down a very nice street, and near the great walls of the city see situated the Van Thamper Villa, at least to your knowledge, Lothar. This villa is a stately stone edifice with a detached stable house. Both these buildings have sloped rooftops with red clay tiles. The manor is a 2-floored building, and surrounded by a very nice wall with a couple of gates. There's one at the front, the main entrance, and then a side gate for carriage. After all, they have a carriage. Even though animals of burden are against the law in Baldur's Gate, especially in the lower city, you know, Lothar, that the really rich, they're allowed to have a carriage with some horses. It can look quite fancy to move around with one of those.
Indeed. Well, I suggest that we see what we can see here and try to observe the villa, see if we can figure some way in. And when the time is right, we will make our move.
Well, we can start looking for gaps in their security here. There's always an unlocked gate or a wall that can be climbed over, some bushes that provide cover. Can Larissa see anything with her experience, having probably been in a few houses or well-secure places before, that look like good entry points or possible entry points?
First of all, you have to tell me, how do you approach the walls and the house? Rhea very quickly, nodding by the way the whole time you've all been speaking, says, only thing is, shouldn't we be a bit worried about all these guards? Saying that, a squadron of 5 march straight past you on the street, looking everywhere, 2 of them looking in your direction and looking a little suspicious of 4 people just standing outside a villa, but they move on. But yes, Lothar, this is the High City. There will be patrols regular, especially during the day.
Lothar, why don't you give us a tour through the streets? As we are new to the High City and you are so familiar with it, I'm sure none of these watchmen could begrudge you showing your companions around before going to the High House of Wonder.
Certainly, I shall do just that. And, well, perhaps we can see if we can find out any kind of pattern to the guard patrols. That may also be of use to us. And that is, I suppose, what we attempt to do. We try to scope the place out, try to find any kind of weaknesses, any kinds of ways in to the place, be it, as was mentioned, some kind of open gate, some kind of delivery of goods, or, I don't know, guard change, something that would give us an idea of how we can get inside.
I imagine that, like, it's almost like tour groupy, where Lothar will stop in front of the house as we go round and start explaining the history of the Van Thamper family and their importance and things like that. Give us a reason to pause and admire.
Royce, what are you doing?
While also casing out kind of potential entry points, if I can catch sight of Tobin, potentially try and catch his eye. If he's working as a guard at the house.
Doing your best to be subtle, which is tricky, but doable during the day at least. You take a good view of the floor plan of this villa. It's a 2-storied building. Main ways through the wall, about 10 feet, would be obviously scaling it. It's doable, although that would draw attention. There is the main gate at the front, a second gate at the front, and you do, again, trying to be subtle, you go all the way around. There is a back gate as well. This is nearer the stable building. That seems to be separate from the main mansion. The mansion itself, again, hard to see too many details through the railings without going really close. But you can tell it's a large house. It has a front entrance, a back entrance, it seems. Going round the back, you do notice a balcony, which would lead to the second floor, and that is sort of in front of the house. There is a front balcony. You also notice guardsmen. These guardsmen are not attired as the watch. They are obviously house guards. They seem to travel in groups of 3. You spot at least 9, making rounds around the villa itself. You do not see any sign of anyone who looks like Tobin, I'm afraid, though, Royce.
Okay. I'm going to just continue casing out the area and see potential areas that maybe we can break through a fence. There's any rusted bit of a wall or fencing that we can kind of get into, you know?
The railings are extremely well kept. There is no rusting rails here.
If it helps, I can definitely pick any locks that we find, and I can also disguise myself very well.
Again, looking around, where could you go? You're gonna have to scale the walls. Unless you pick the locks on the gates, but then you worry that even opening a gate, is it going to make noise? Is it going to be noticeable? It'll be up to you, I guess, to decide which is the best route. There are also lots of bushes and shrubs near the main railings, so maybe a bit of hiding could be there. The stables are a separate building from the main house. You do notice that. And again, there's that balcony. Could you scale up there? Maybe. You're not sure if the windows will be all locked on the upper floors. Again, though, patrols of guards, and of course, the watchmen. Now, Lofar, while you think the guards inside will probably stay the same at night, you do know that at night the watch will decrease a little, and even though the fog isn't so bad here, it does still get in a little at night. Obviously, as well, people normally are sleeping at night, while at this time of day, who knows how many people inside the house are awake, moving around. A patriarch like this? She must have a good amount of staff and guards inside.
Well, I would suggest that we find out now what we can here, and then we will make our approach during the night, yes? The fog will come in, the guards will be fewer, and a lot of people will be asleep.
Trying to get back into this district at night is going to be impossible, though. Perhaps we could get onto the grounds and find somewhere to wait.
We might not need to leave at all. I think we could wait in the High House of Wonder. Could we not? Can I think of a way to do that? I do know that place inside and out. There must be some place that we could hide out in for a little while and exit.
Certainly you could wait for a while, though you'll have to come up with a plan for later on. You are expected, as a lawful citizen, to be making your exit as night falls with everyone else and leave the city. But you could certainly wait there for a while.
I would like to check on my buddy, Grom. Yeah, my former employer, current employer, buddy of mine, Grom, was allegedly escorted to the High House of Wonders by Zooja's boys, so it'd be nice to see what happened to him.
We could possibly split the party a little. If you want to wait there, Larissa could try and get into the grounds and wait there. Find somewhere to hide out, the equivalent of a shed or something like that. And she could watch and see what goes on, and then get you in come nightfall.
That sounds like a plan.
If you think you can get over the walls or get in during the daytime without being detected, then certainly that would be good.
I think I can. The walls are 10 foot high, right?
Yes.
I think I can. If I cast Silent Image and basically make the brick wall look like a brick wall, I can stand behind that silent image and climb over it. So I'm not visible from the street, I just have to make sure the guards in the building don't see me.
Indeed. Although, as you're discussing this plan, Rhea does seem a little concerned. Are you sure you'll be alright? I don't feel very good just leaving you. What if you get in trouble and we're not here?
Well, if I get in trouble and you come back and I'm not here, then you carry on with what you're doing. At least they don't catch us all at once, right? Anyway, I'm sure I can get myself back out of trouble.
Rhea nods, but she doesn't seem entirely convinced. But again, she seems to go along with what you all say. She's obviously taking quite a liking to all of you, and perhaps quite a trusting individual, you notice. And as you're all discussing this plan and looking at the villa, a voice then calls out from just a slight little alleyway, although the alleyways in the high city are far less, there are some. Well, well, well. You four certainly are keeping a low profile. The watch aren't paying you too much attention. But you have to remember, in the high city, sometimes there might be more people watching you than you think. What did the three of you do?
The rest of looks to see who's in that alleyway.
There is a woman in the alleyway, slightly hooded. She withdraws the hood. And you are a little relieved. Larissa, after all, you recognize Katakala, and you of course recognize her as well, Lofar. You'd recognize your sister anywhere.
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we played the campaign Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. We were joined by Virginia Page, who is Tabletop Horde on Twitter, and Owen Fáilbhe from the How We Roll podcast. We would like to extend our thanks to our friends at Wizards of the Coast for all their support in getting us the material early and for helping more people discover the show. The music was made by Halgrath, Aegis Sonus, Atrium Carceri and Herbst9 and was used with permission from their label Cryochamber. Check out their website at cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for some moody dark ambient. We also used the soundtrack to Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 by Michael Honig and to Planescape Torment by Mark Morgan, and permission for this was given by the awesome people at Beamdog. Check out the enhanced editions of those classic games for some of the best D&D adventures ever created. If you want to support our work, please check us out on Patreon. You can get access to bonus campaigns for Cult, Divinity Lost, and Coriolis there, as well as get early and raw access to all of our recordings. More importantly, that support is what keeps the show going, so please do consider becoming one of our beloved Patreons. Thank you again for listening, and see you soon again.